Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. I'm Rod Chang, and today is our AOAUK live stream podcast 033. Okay, and it's a kind of, should I say, it's a Mercury stationary special. Okay, because we have a little bit of delay because I'm on my laptop and the setting was a little bit different. So I need a little bit log in again, log out again, then finally we are here. So just 2 minutes today. And also today with me is Sue, and Marcus may turns up. So well, any minutes, but you know. Oh, hello, Pete. Peter, say hello. Okay. Hello, Sue.
Hello.
So today our podcast is kind of a little bit different because I'm a little bit away, and but we're still trying to make it. And oh, Marcus is joining us now.
Marcus is coming, yeah.
Yeah, Marcus is joining us now. Cool. So today, as we are going to talk about we have a few topics, but we will mainly focus on Venus-Mars conjunction. And then we have time, we'll talk about the new moon. And if we have more time, we will talk about full moon. Okay, hello, Marcus.
Hello.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi.
So as we just talked about, we were going to talk about the Venus-Mars conjunction. And I think in all amount of the planet movement, I find the Venus-Mars conjunction is most fascination because both planet move in kind of a similar speed. So every time when they try to catch each other, when they're going to do conjunction, they are usually kind of spend long period together. Usually can spend like kind of from approach to separation. Usually can do at least a good 2 months ish, I think. And this time is quite interesting, even more interesting because Venus just turned direction. So the speed of Venus is still very slow. And interesting, I think I really want to talk about something is kind of a planetary agenda. Who chasing who? Usually Venus is speed is quicker than Mars. So usually it's Venus chasing Mars. At this moment, Venus is slow. It's still moving forward, but Mars is speeding up and kind of chasing Venus and conjunct with Venus and move away. So the conjunction will happen mid of this month, and then Venus will speed up around March. They will conjunct again. I like this. It's a little bit drama. I don't know. I call it drama. It's like soap TV or something. It's like, oh yes, I'm chasing you.
It's like a carry on sketch, right? You chase me, I chase you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Should we start with Sue? Sue.
Sorry?
Yeah, Sue, how about your interpretation of this Venus-Mars conjunction in Capricorn?
Yeah. Well, now I was just thinking they will move between Capricorn and the next sign, Aquarius. They will be in both signs at different times. So they have very different meanings, really. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so it's a happy person there, right? And it's because it's very interesting because Mars is buzzy and speedy and active and many things are going on, and Capricorn is slow and structured and organized, not entirely slow but at least very structured and likes to be responsible and kind of vouch for whatever it's doing, put it out very clearly. So it's almost like Mars, although Mars is happy in Capricorn, it's maybe because Capricorn gives some structure to the speed and the fire of Mars, right? Actually may combine very well, okay? So when we bring in Venus as well, because what we've got with Venus-Mars conjunctions, we've got loving and fighting, right? So it's like a very stormy relationship, but potentially a very sparky and exciting relationship between the two. So it kind of gives a buzz that goes on into the next sign where the two of them come around again in Aquarius. So that's very sparky somehow. So it's like that's what's happening over the next couple of weeks while it's going on, or a couple of weeks. It'll go away a bit at the beginning of March and it'll come back in the middle, right? So it's actually very interesting when I think about one of the things that's happening in the wider world, which is the issue with Russia, right? With that going on at the time, you know, it doesn't signify something quite serious, that something, you know, may approach something like war. Will this happen, right? Or will it actually not happen, because they'll talk each other out of it, they'll work it out somehow, right? So it's a very interesting period of time to be watching, astrologically speaking, what is actually going on between these two planets up there. So I like the dynamics of these two planets actually.
So Marcus, how's your interpretation about this Venus-Mars conjunction and like the drama?
Okay. Well, I'm liking what Sue is saying there. I haven't sat down and given this acres of thought, but there are a couple of interesting ideas. I mean, both of these conjunctions, the first one where, as you pointed out, Rod, Mars is pursuing Venus, and then the second one where Venus is pursuing Mars, are happening in Saturn-ruled signs. But one of them is happening in the feminine Saturn-ruled sign, where, as Sue mentioned, Mars is very happy and exalted. And the second one is happening in the masculine, quote unquote, archetypally Aquarius, which is the masculine Saturn-ruled sign, where Saturn currently is. So just a few thoughts off the top of my head really about this are that with the Mars coming to Venus in Capricorn, something like that feels like some sort of high-powered office romance with the archetypal sort of attractive woman and this type A businessman pursuing her or something. And because there's a reception there, it's quite it's quite a pleasant thing altogether, even though Mars is Mars, so it could be over aggressive and whatever. It's kind of got there might be there might be a touch of what was that really successful movie with BDSM in it, that Shades of Grey?
Oh, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, that one. There might be a touch of 50 Shades of Grey there because it's in the same room with Pluto, right? But anyway, whatever. So all that's going on. So how to translate that into the wider world context, I do not know, only that it's Mars pursuing Venus, and Venus is taking a very archetypally Venus role because it's Venus in a feminine sign here. So very much the light. Mars was traditionally the light that commands, so the pursuing aggressor, and Venus was the I'm going to pretend that's not happening, but really come here sort of thing, like the very sort of a sort of seductive, archetypally female archetype. That all changes when they move into Aquarius, because then they both become, like, Venus becomes more independent, more socially minded, and doesn't really give a monkeys about Mars in Aquarius, because she's not in any of Mars's dignities, and Mars loses a great deal of his power, and they're both in the sign ruled by Saturn. So it's kind of like this initially kind of passionate office romance with a little bit of a kinky side turns into this more sort of formal social relationship with a much stronger and perhaps more restrictive or restraining social contract. It's a very different vibe. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. I have no idea at the moment how it will, but I'm sure something will pop into my head at some point.
Actually, if I just pick up on something, thank you for that, Marcus. I enjoyed listening to that. That was great. What I mentioned about the possible war, or the whole sort of, you know, what's the word? A dynamic situation going on, shall we say, in Russia at the moment. I didn't really conclude what I was trying to say. What I wanted to say was, at the moment, it's very interesting having these two conjunct at this time, is saying that really it could go either way. It's hanging on a knife edge as to whether it will go in one direction or another, whether it will go to war or diplomacy wins. It's very difficult to see exactly through this little part of astrology, which of those things is going to happen. But I do see that almost in a sense that they're sort of balancing each other. It's almost like, you know, there is a goodwill or a strong will against negative violence coming from the rest of the world or from large parts of the world, and yet within the Russian dynamic there seems to be quite a sort of urge towards aggression. That's the external appearance at the very least. I mean, I can't conclude that definitely, but
how about in personal life? I think as Venus usually present things we like, we desire, or we enjoy, we value it, and Mars is how we chasing it.
yes.
So these two planets conjunct Capricorn, and the separation, and then come back again. It's like sounds like a little bit like things we have to do it and redo it again. I don't want to say it's like a retrograde, but it's like things happen twice.
It's interesting, Rod. It's like what you pointed out, the roles reverse. Mars chases Venus, then second time round, second verse, different stage setting, because now we're in Aquarius, Venus chases Mars. So it's sort of like in the first scenario, Mars is exalted, Mars is powerful, Mars is chasing Venus. Venus is kind of enjoying it, but there's a little bit of a subtext here because of the presence of Pluto, and it's in Capricorn, which is kind of dark anyway. So, you know, it can be. So, but definitely with the Pluto there. And remember, the Venus retrograde began conjunct Pluto, and she's in her shadow. She's moving through the degrees she's already traversed in her retrograde. So then when it's changed into Aquarius, it's kind of like Venus becomes the pursuer, not Mars, but the vibe is very different. It's like here Venus is sort of pursuing Mars in order to assert her kind of indifference, because it's like the first time around Mars is pursuing Venus, and Venus is like, oh, I really want you, Mars, because she's in Mars's exaltation. In Aquarius, Venus doesn't give a monkeys about Mars for the most part. She doesn't care, because she's in no dignities of Mars, and Mars has lost all that lovely authority and power that he had in Capricorn, because he's in Aquarius and he doesn't have any major dignity there. Saturn has all the dignity, and actually both of them in Aquarius are answerable to Saturn. And so it's like, okay, these are the social rules, you guys. So it's kind of like in the first instance, Mars chases Venus. Venus kind of likes it. Then some kind of like fairly kinky stuff goes down that may make either or both parties feel uncomfortable. Then change of scene. Venus is pursuing Mars, maybe not for romantic purposes, but for kind of like litigation, or to lay down some ground rules, or to go, actually, this is how things are going to go. Not necessarily that there's a battle, because Venus is not an aggressor here, and Venus doesn't dislike Mars in Aquarius, but it's just a very different, okay, we're rewriting the social contract here. It's a very, I don't know how that will play out, but it's really interesting.
That's so interesting, because if you happen to be in a situation with somebody in your circle of acquaintances with whom you're having this kind of on-off kind of, you know, do we pursue this, do we not pursue this, where do we go with it, what does it mean, all of that stuff, right? It makes for quite an exciting, although uncertain, time. It's like, you know, it's if you happen to have that situation in your life where you're actually kind of around somebody that is interesting to you, not necessarily entirely romantically, it might be just interesting from a different other point of view. If that happens to be the case, and you may feel that they're a bit on and off with you, they're a bit uncertain, you are perhaps inclined to be on and off with them, and it's like just being reflected in the sky, really, with Venus and Mars up there doing a similar actual move.
That's a great, I like that, Sue. That's a great analysis. I mean, just one final thought, and how it may play out in the wider, in the mundane. I mean, this is really just me spitballing, as I say, but the Capricorn can be kind of like corporate-y, because it's very formal, and Aquarius can be kind of socially, because it's not formal but it's structured. So it's kind of like you've kind of got this change from some sort of like martial corporate power thing pursuing some sort of female thing, or so and then the agenda changing, and the sort of like that there being a change in I don't know how that works, but I was thinking off the top of my head, I don't know what's going on with the company Mars Incorporated, the confectioners, but they might be an interesting study because they're literally called Mars and they make confectionery. So they're a company called Mars that makes Venus stuff. It would be really interesting to see what's going. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be in the news or if it's going to be if we could somehow get an insider view of what's going on.
Nice point, Marcus. Yeah, that's also possible. Watch out for news about Mars.
Yeah, or just I'm gonna hunt it down, see if anything's going down there at the moment. So, yeah.
Okay, should we move to next topic? Is about a new moon. I mean, new moon a couple days ago just happened, and it is a very interesting new moon, because it's Aquarius new moon. But I think the new moon is because it's in a kind of made of Aquarius, so it's square Uranus. And for this kind of a mundane thing, it is not very easy, to be honest, at least for this moment. And the things like I like that because could be the weather could be go extreme because the Uranus theme is kind of unpredictable and usually go either side. And then also this kind of unpredictable or cut off, or someone have to go. I don't know, but it is a very interesting new moon. Sue, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm just actually equating that with the Venus-Mars, which is approximately the same time, or it's in the background at least. So it's like you can't really divorce one from the other completely. So it gives a sort of a degree of exciting uncertainty to this period of time.
Do you mean
reflected in the wider world, maybe reflected in your personal life as well? Right. So it's like something new is coming, something is opening up again. I mean, the new moon comes around every 28 days or whatever it is. So it's like it's not an unusual event. This happens every month. But it's like when you add it in to our Venus-Mars that we've got around in the background here. So we're saying, something, what I get an image of sort of little sparks kind of floating into the air somehow. It just gives me a picture in my head of that kind of energy, right? So the new moon can be quite an exciting and dynamic one, in my opinion. Don't know, what do you think, Marcos?
I don't know. I agree, Sue. It's also conjunct Saturn, isn't it? So it's really animating that Saturn-Uranus square. So I absolutely agree. The Uranus element, I can see sparks floating from the air. Absolutely. There's also this because it's within 3 degrees, so that it's not exactly on Saturn, but it's close enough, and it's a new moon that's reanimating that Saturn-Uranus square, which is past exact now. So. Something along that, like this month, there's going to be some sort of new start in terms of social legislation or social boundaries or the social contract between people that will involve some kind of majorly unpredictable stuff or like some sudden change in the social contract. So that could involve policy, like the obvious one, which is social distancing policies or lockdown related policies worldwide, which suddenly undergo some kind of shift or mutation, both of which are Uranian things. I think but yeah, I agree. Definitely, the Uranus adds this unpredictability and excitement, but it's conjunct Saturn as well. So there's this sense of a new beginning relating to boundaries and impositions and limitations, particularly in the social sphere. But with Uranus creating this excitement, unpredictability, what's going to happen? We don't know. Oh, it's all changed again, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's contradictory. Actually.
Fundamentally,
The Uranus square is a very contradictory kind of element, really. Stuck within sort of structure and and letting everything out and letting it go free and letting it build new and all that stuff. And in combined with the moon, it's like it's such a strange. Saturn Uranus is such a strange combination, right? The old and the new. Of those kinds of contrasts are going on. So it's like, I would just say that things are not very, very stable. But it does look like that rules may be broken down, they may be opened up. Things may shift across the world, not just in this country. I agree, yeah.
It's something like, what's interesting to me, Sue, is that next month, obviously, we have the new moon, which we're not going to interpret now because that's next month,
Yeah.
in Pisces with Jupiter, which is like totally the opposite vibe almost. So it's kind of like this month has this, it has that unpredictability that the rules may be being broken down, but it's both Uranus and Saturn are autocratic, aren't they? Neither of them are democratic by nature. I mean, Uranus, you might argue, is democratic, but only in the sense that it's like freedom for all, but it's not going to compromise about that.
My ideas of what the
Yes, yeah. It's got this kind of,
ideas.
it's got this very, very radical, uncompromising nature that, you know, they both have that. Compromise is not in either of their lexicons. So it's kind of like this month with any breakdowns or alterations of boundaries or legislations worldwide, they will be done in an autocratic, uncompromising, and sometimes shocking manner that's not really taking into account the gentler sensibilities of folk, or, you know. And then next month we've got that new moon with Jupiter, which is emphasizing the other side of things which is going on at the moment, which is this growth of optimism and growth of positivity. So
you can see that.
Yeah, but I do completely agree, Sue, that it's going to involve that unpredictability, and I think the change in the social boundaries and stuff, and maybe the breakdown of some boundaries. But my feeling is it's kind of like almost, if the table's flipped, it's kind of like whatever's on this side of the table, it's going to be something different, but kind of same but different on the other side. Do you know what I mean? It's not like oh, the boundary's gone, we're all free. It's like the boundary's gone, here's some different ones. Do you know what I mean? Or, yeah.
A lot of different boundaries,
yeah, something like that. I don't know, but
I was just thinking, as a sort of a fairly concluding remark, I was just thinking I'm concerned about what might be happening within our own government here in this country. However, I am aware that not everybody that's listening tonight is necessarily in this country, so you might not care that much.
But Sue, I think that remark might well apply to many different countries worldwide, globally at the moment, because I think there are very few governments currently untouched by some sort of insanity of the kind that we're experiencing, you know, with question marks over the aptitude of their leadership, question marks over the integrity of leadership. These are like global issues right now, and obviously we're doing this podcast on the day when the Sun conjunct Saturn BTW, further reactivating that square. So that's kind of very much in the collective consciousness right now. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, so this new moon really showed those like uncertainty, and also help us to review that kind of year-long this Saturn-Uranus conjunct square, Saturn-Uranus square since 2021, and then like all year long, and they have 3 exact conjunct square, and then now we're going to review it, and because I think. Last exact square was a kind of last year, December, and now we can still sense it. And with this new moon trigger it, it's quite interesting. Also, they are not really square that tight, but we can have a review and we can make our, make our decision. I think this is a pretty interesting moment. And as Marcus pointed out, the next month, the atmosphere would be slightly different. Don't be too happy, to be honest.
not yet. We've got some fairly chewy astrology coming up in the next couple of months, haven't we? But we've got some lighter bits as well. So I mean, it's a real year of contrasts, this one, isn't it? Because we've got
really is, because it's like one of the things that does come out of next month, which we perhaps will discuss next month, is a sense of sort of things opening up. You know, things becoming more open, more free, more available somehow.
And as at the same time as because we're talking the Jupiter in Pisces and Venus moving into Pisces with Jupiter, there's this amazing conjunction of those two happening almost simultaneously, with Mars and Saturn coming to conjoin again in Aquarius, just like they did in, I think, April end of March, beginning of April 2020, at the start of the global pandemic. So we've got this amazing opening up, liberating thing going to be happening at the same time with this aggravation of social unrest vibe. I mean, they're not quite exactly the same time, and there are some mitigating factors which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's super interesting, isn't it, guys? Just like how
you just make me think about the scenario most likely to happen is, yes, we are open to, there's no more lockdown, there's no more restriction, and you don't even need to wear masks, but it's a mandatory, everyone get vaccine.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, or there's mandation of no travel, but we're opening up everything. It's like it's some weird, whatever. It's some weird flip floppy thing, and there'll be. I don't know. We shall see.
Let me say one more thing.
Yeah, please.
Because of the Mars-Venus conjunction, because of the Saturn-Uranus square, there are going to be some voices that will be dissenting and saying they don't want that. So it's like, there will be a lot of opening up of many boundaries for many people, but there's some people who don't want the boundaries open. They're too worried still.
Well,
I'm quite happy to stay home.
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly it, isn't it? There's going to be that because the Uranus is the freedom bit, and the Saturn is the sort of more conservative, negatively fear-based, but also kind of about control, wanting to make sure that everything's okay before we do anything. So those things are in conflict, and that's going to be highlighted. Anyway. More interesting times, part 100, basically.
Exactly. So I think it's about time. Do you want to continue for the full moon, or?
Yeah, I think we should, because this is only monthly now, isn't it? So maybe we should do another 10-15 minutes on that.
Okay. Yes, let's go on the full moon then. Full moon is on 16th of February, and I think it's quite interesting. On the full moon day, this also the exact conjunct of the Venus-Mars conjunction. Is on the 16th degree of Capricorn. Let me say that before you guys say everything. This degree is pretty interesting because there are a few fixed stars there. The first one is Vega. Yeah. So I think we already covered big part of Venus-Mars conjunction, so we don't need to repeat it. The one thing I see is that Sun and Moon are kind of one is semi-sextile, Moon is semi-sextile, Sun is semi-sextile with Pluto, and the Moon is kind of quincunx with Pluto. So there is kind of uneasy there between this full moon, between this new moon. We have like a tension there. We are not sure, and then because the next new moon is like with Jupiter, and this one is like we are trying to adjust ourselves according our fear.
That's interesting.
There's a couple of fixed stars being called into this, actually. There's the Vega and then I'm sure you noticed the moon is on Regulus on that full moon as well. And the other thing I've just noticed, this may or may not be relevant, but this may be, you remember end of last year there was that eclipse with the moon on Algol. Well, now I think at the time of this full moon, I don't know whether this is relevant, but we've got the North Node is on Algol at this time, so it's like the eclipse point itself. That may not be relevant, but I think that the Venus-Mars conjunction on Vega will emphasize quite nicely the Venus element, because Vega I think is a Venus-y star. It's kind of got a
Venus
bit
Mercury.
Right, thank you. Okay, you're the fixed star guy, so
I just review it.
Perfect.
A couple of days ago.
Yeah, well, that's amazing, because that should emphasize the nice sort of side of that Venus-Mars conjunction, and the moon on Vega. There's something there about, I don't know, what's that about? The moon on Regulus at the point of the full moon. That could be something like about prominent, famous royal women. If it's a full moon,
interesting.
Or royal or famous or important female leaders becoming like full moon is like they're emerging. They're pattern, some story there is coming into the light at the same time as that Venus-Mars conjunction in Capricorn on Vega. So there's some kind of the fixed stars give this really sort of special thing that on an earthly level could be celebrity or could be some almost mythological level of story coming out into the news.
Why you mentioned that North Node is aligned with Algo, and this, for me, this kind of a double whammy with the moon and the sun aspect have the minor aspect with Pluto. Both Pluto and Algo has a little bit the fear and the scare.
Craziness
Also,
is basically people. Yes. Craziness. Pluto is the paranoia, and Algo is people losing their head. Fear. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So I think this describes the next 28 days. People are maybe a little bit not sure what we're doing. Yeah. So, what's your interpretation of this full moon?
Well, I'm just going to say something before I go into that, which is when Marcus mentioned women leaders and royalty and all that business, who's been in the news of them recently? Prince William's wife. What's her flipping name?
Kate.
Yeah, Kate. That's right. Yeah, she's been made the president or the patron of a rugby organisation. I don't know about rugby really much.
Not me either.
She was lifted up on the they lifted her up to give her celebration and all that business. So it's like she's really kind of been in the news recently. She's sort of around a great deal, and one wonders, whether there will be more developing information about her and the role that she has, and therefore that will always bring in Meghan Markle, because it always does. Right?
Yes.
This is not only about famous women. It's just that she happens to be someone who's really caught my eye in the news the last few days. Right? So we're moving towards the full moon, and as we do every month. And yes, it always happens that way. And there are women out there who are not necessarily in the public eye and not necessarily in the news, but individuals that you may know in your work or in your field or your circle, who may come to some kind of prominence, or may sort of stand out in some small way or a large way, for that matter. It will depend. That's possible that something like that might be part of your life in the next week or 2 weeks till we get to the full moon. I don't know, you ever have a think about people that you know in your own life, or maybe even you, if you're female, you may be listening. Right? Maybe some opportunity coming up for you.
It's an interesting one as well, because that full moon is also is pretty much squaring the nodes. It's what would be called at the bends in
yes,
which means it's really a turning point. It's some sort of if there are, I mean, we're assuming it's women coming to power and prominence because moon is full and the moon is on Regulus, this king-making royal star. So that's the logic behind it. But squaring the nodes is always this time of literally a watershed, like a turning point of some kind. So I was just thinking in the back of my mind, it may not be to do with this at all. I was just wondering about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the States, whether they're, because it's always been this, will she have to take over from him at some point? Is there going to be some, I don't know, there might be a development in that story there about, but I'd certainly see like either royal or famous women.
Or maybe, I mean, when you talk about that, maybe I was just thinking, or maybe in UK, if in case our prime minister has to go, and then the successor could be female.
Who though?
Who knows? I mean, you talking about Biden and the Kamala Harris.
Yes,
In our side, in UK side, there's also a possibility a female.
Oh, mind you, yes. There's. I suppose there are a few female front bench cabinet members at the moment, so might be.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I'm not going to say my actual thoughts on that matter, but
we don't go that way. But I just say that is a possibility, that's and all the female lead. Another thing I was thinking is the in UK, I think the other people maybe get bored, but I don't know, that's maybe not in regular Sharia laws, but the metropolitan police, the head of a commissioner,
Oh,
I think,
Dick.
yeah, she's kind of
Yes.
put on notice and going to change her position too, or maybe she will stay. I don't know, that's another thing, but I don't know that's really that royal or that important, but still her role still quite important. That's UK side. I don't want to boring other people with this. Let's come to the this full moon. I think also quite interesting. I think the things develop is like at this moment we have kind of step in that kind of a Jupiter first going to sextile with Uranus, and then soon we're going to conjunct with Neptune. The things there is really an atmosphere of opening up. And people would, yay!
yeah. And Venus Mars conjunction is, if there is sometimes kind of a good time for a party, it has to be said. So not well, maybe not. I don't know. Venus Mars conjunct in Capricorn on Vega, it's kind of like that's a really good office party.
Bring your own booze.
Could be. Yeah.
Oh
dear.
And it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned Cressida Dick, the head of Metropolitan Police, Rod, because I'd actually temporarily forgotten her, put her to one side, and of course, another female leader, right? These people are not actually royalty, but they're sort of the equivalent of royalty. They've got prominence in the world, and they're always in the news and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there seems to be a questioning of leaderships about the place. It's not just her and Johnson. It's just like other people are being. There are lots of people kind of changing their positions, giving in, resigning, stopping.
Yes.
There's a lot of shifting and moving that's not very stable at all at the present time, which reflects all the stuff that's actually going on astrologically.
Exactly, with this new moon trigger, the Saturn and the Uranus, things kind of flipping,
Yeah.
And we are not really sure.
Well, the other point about this new moon, I just thought the other symbolism for the moon is public opinion. The moon is about public opinion. So this is kind of like stuff coming to light, which not only affects public opinion about these famous women, it's like the public themselves kind of making some realization about, or coming to some realization, stuff coming to light that affects their opinion of leaders, I suspect, in some way.
That's very true, because if you watch any of the news channels available to us, you're getting interviews amongst people in all sorts of towns across Britain, right? And in other countries as well, but looking particularly at the British situation at the present time, there's an awful mishmash of opinion, actually, very complicated, and it's very difficult to know how it's going to finally pan out, who's going to retain their position and who's not. Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, so I think I hope
a culmination by the time we get to the full moon.
Yes.
Oh yes, or maybe have to waiting for next new moon. I think with Jupiter we will look at things a little bit more positively.
Yes, yeah.
I really hope.
Yeah.
But I'd love to. I'm very interested to see what this Venus Mars conjunction on Vega brings, because that at the same time as that coming to fruition, because there's something very significant about those two planets conjoining on a fixed star like Vega. Do we know anything about the mythology of Vega? It's a Vega. One of the names of it is the falling vulture cadens.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, if you let me put advertising here, because me and Christian last week we talked about it.
Yeah.
And Christian say it's not falling. It's something trying to catch the prey.
Ah, okay. So it's not falling, it's descending. It's swooping
Descending, going to
down.
catch the prey. It's not falling by, but it's going to catch something.
Yeah, but vulture, if it's called
Vulture.
it's called vulture cadens, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cadens means falling, and a vulture isn't a bird of prey. It's usually a scavenger.
Yeah, scavenger, I think. Still go to
Okay, so it's
grab
swooping
some,
down. It's
yeah,
not falling.
grab
It's not
something,
falling over. It's
grab
not.
some food.
It's not sick vulture. It's just falling over. But I mean, it was a positive star, wasn't it? So it's like
It
an
is, yeah.
artistic, creative, pleasure-loving star. It can be. I think with Mars or Venus, it can be a bit lascivious. It can be a bit of a perv because Capricorn's kind of a bit kinky secretly. So it can be a little bit kinky, but which is
I
another
think
reason.
I think I remember that's Elizabeth Epperting's interpretation.
What was her interpretation?
A little bit.
A little bit of kink, a little bit of
Yes.
kink. All right, yeah, no. So it's like I say, it's kind of an office party, and maybe your offices are in a dungeon in Soho. But I mean, it's an interesting conjunction because it will amp up sort of that combination is always passionate and it's creative and it's got something.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's at the same time as you've got this stuff about leadership coming to fruit culmination, this watershed, this sort of crisis decision, and a sort of emergence of maybe female leaders coming to prominence, maybe a public change in perception of who should be leader or what leaders should be doing. You've got this sort of kind of vaguely kinky, kind of artistic, sort of like kind of fun, but in a little bit of a let's get down to work sort of a way vibe going on. And I don't know what that's about, but it's interesting.
I think what we're saying is that there's likely to be an emphasis on the feminine, on women.
Exactly.
Over the next
Yes,
couple of
for
weeks,
sure.
maybe over the next month till we get to the next new moon. You're right, Rod. That could be the case. So something to be a lot more of that sort of reporting in the news, I think.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And it's interesting, as we pointed out at the beginning, as you pointed out, I think, Rod, that Mars chases Venus to this conjunction, but then the roles are reversed. So it's like, so
we don't know who will get the prize. Maybe that voucher.
I think the prize ends up being Saturn, so probably nobody gets much. They get, I don't know, they get a discount off their next tax return or something. But...
Well, okay. I think it's so wonderful discussion today. And thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Sue, for joining us today. And let me remind you, next week is our World Scope, and we have Lian and Alejo going to join us, and also our amazing panelists join us. So and then we will have me and Alejo will have our first little bit of educational program on the following week, and then we will have me and Christian talk about fixed star. So each week we have a little bit different program, and if you want to study the basic one, we have like you don't have time, we have 10 minutes astrology, me and Alejo every week, give like a little 10 minutes and help you to learn astrology. So stay in tune, and we will come back next month, and Marcus and Sue and maybe Mandy will join us in the early March. Okay,
amazing.
Indeed.
All right, stay in tune. Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Okay, lots of love. Bye.